there was a man named Matthew who was having a lot of trouble with a narcissistic coworker named Brad. No matter what Matthew did, Brad always tried to make himself look better by putting Matthew down. Brad would take credit for Matthew's ideas in meetings, interrupt and talk over Matthew constantly, and criticize every little thing Matthew did. Matthew was starting to dread going into the office each day to face Brad's selfish and belittling behavior. One evening, after a particularly frustrating encounter with Brad, Matthew was venting to his elderly neighbor, Henry, about the situation. Henry was a kind and wise, retired philosophy professor. "I just don't know how to deal with someone like Brad," Matthew lamented. "He's so arrogant and inconsiderate. It's like he gets joy out of making me feel bad about myself." Henry nodded sympathetically. "Narcissists can certainly be challenging people to deal with. But, you know, the Stoics had some valuable insights about this sort of situation. Let me tell you a story that may help illustrate their wise perspective." Matthew settled in to listen as Henry began. There was once a merchant named Zeno who prided himself on being a tough negotiator when trading goods. Regardless of who he was dealing with, Zeno would flaunt his wealth and success to gain an advantage over them. One day, Zeno was negotiating with a humble farmer over the price of a few sacks of grain. As usual, Zeno began boasting about his vast riches and trying to intimidate the farmer into accepting a very low price. Instead of feeling intimidated, the farmer simply smiled at Zeno's narcissistic display. "Friend," he said calmly, "I mean no disrespect, but your wealth and stature have no bearing on the true value of this grain. The grain is worth what it is worth, regardless of who is buying or selling it." Zeno was surprised by the farmer's composed attitude. He continued with his intimidation tactics, thinking he could eventually break the man. But the farmer stood firm, rejecting each of Zeno's lowball offers with the same calm demeanor. Eventually, feeling frustrated and embarrassed by his lack of success, Zeno gave up and agreed to pay the farmer the price he had initially requested for the grain. As the farmer loaded up Zeno's purchased goods, the merchant couldn't resist one last jab. "You must think yourself very wise, standing up to me like that," Zeno sneered. The farmer looked at Zeno with a hint of pity. "Not wise, friend. Just unburdened." He went on to explain. "You see, from the moment we began negotiating, your mind was weighed down by pride, greed, and a need for superiority. Because of this, you became agitated, difficult, and unreasonable when you didn't get your way. You suffered greatly over something as trivial as the price of grain. I, on the other hand, stayed focused on what is most important, treating others with kindness and being satisfied with a fair deal for my goods. My mind remained clear and peaceful throughout our transaction. In the end, you wasted a lot of energy and made yourself really unhappy, all because you were too focused on your ego and got caught up in negative emotions like arrogance, anger, and envy. Meanwhile, I just focused on doing an honest deal and let go of all that stress. So, who's really smarter here? The rich merchant who's all stressed out, or the simple farmer who's feeling calm and content?" Zeno was speechless. Maybe for the first time, he truly understood the mistake of being controlled by his own narcissistic thoughts. As the wise farmer continued on his way, Zeno made a promise to himself to learn from this encounter and strive to achieve the same unshakable peace of mind as the farmer. Henry paused to let the meaning of the story sink in. Matthew furrowed his brow as he reflected on the tale. "So, are you suggesting that I should feel sorry for Brad instead of getting mad at him?" Matthew asked, "because his narcissism and desire for ego boosting just end up making him miserable and weighed down, while I can keep my own peace of mind by not giving in to those same pitfalls?" Henry smiled and nodded. "Precisely. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius put it, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, 'The people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not of the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. Matthew thought about this viewpoint. Despite how aggravating Brad's actions were, Matthew realized they likely stemmed from Brad's own deep-seated insecurities and faults. Instead of letting himself be weighed down by those same negative traits, Matthew could opt to stay calm and even feel empathy for Brad's inner struggles. It wasn't an easy mindset to embrace, but Matthew sensed the wisdom and strength in doing so. "I think I'm starting to get it," Matthew said, taking his time. "No matter how cocky or narcissistic Brad behaves, I don't have to let it mess with my own inner peace. By staying composed, logical, and focused on being a decent person myself, I can strip away Brad's influence over my emotions. And maybe I can even try seeing his irritating behavior as something to pity rather than get mad about." Henry nodded in agreement. "You've understood something profound, my friend. The key is not to let your self-worth be determined by the petty opinions and actions of someone like Brad, who's both arrogant and unhappy." He continued, as Marcus Aurelius also wisely stated, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Your distress over Brad's narcissism is caused by your own perceptions and judgments, not his actual behavior. Once you revoke those judgments by developing firmer perspective about what is and isn't important, you'll find his attempts at belittling you slide off you like water off a duck's back." Matthew started to feel a great sense of peace and clarity as he absorbed the wise teachings of Henry about staying calm in tough situations. Instead of letting Brad's actions make him angry, resentful, or feel bad about himself, Matthew realized he could stay grounded and confident in his own goodness. By being kind instead of getting caught up in trivial arguments, he could keep his inner calm, something Brad probably couldn't do. As Matthew made his way home that evening, he felt a remarkable sense of relief. Thanks to Henry's wise Stoic advice, he began to view Brad's narcissistic behavior differently, not as a personal attack, but rather as the predictable actions of someone consumed by ego and negativity. By staying true to his own values and inner peace, Matthew realized he could engage with Brad calmly and even empathetically. From now on, narcissists wouldn't have the power to affect his mental well-being anymore. And with that, Matthew stepped into the future with confidence, equipped with deep wisdom to face each day calmly, a steady presence amid life's turbulent encounters with narcissism. Let's face it, in our modern world, we're bound to encounter narcissists from time to time. They are those people who seem to always need to put themselves first, crave admiration, and act arrogant or entitled. Maybe it's that coworker who tries to take credit for your accomplishments, or the family member who constantly turns the conversation back to themselves, or even just an acquaintance who loves to name drop and brag about their latest purchases or vacations. When we find ourselves having to interact with these kinds of self-absorbed people, it's only natural to get frustrated, annoyed, or even start questioning our own self-worth as they attempt to diminish or belittle us. The narcissist's grandiose behavior can leave us feeling devalued, resentful, and emotionally drained. However, we would be wise to consider the ancient Stoic philosophers' perspective on dealing with such difficult personalities. The Stoics' teachings urge us to meet the narcissist's obnoxious conduct not with hostility or anger, but with a sense of calm detachment and empathy. At their core, the narcissist is really just a troubled individual consumed by insecurities, fears, and an unhealthy self-obsession. Their grandiose arrogance is a cover-up for deep insecurities, and their constant need to put others down stems from their own feelings of inadequacy. Realizing this can help us start viewing the narcissist not as a personal threat, but as someone to be pitied for their inability to be grounded, secure, and at peace within themselves. When we adopt this mindset of understanding, rather than judgment, their narcissistic behaviors begin to hold no real power over us. We can choose not to be drawn into their dramas or egotistical mind games. By staying centered on our own values and not allowing their taunts or grandstanding to chip away at our sense of self-worth, we take back the control over our inner peace that they so desperately attempt to disrupt. As the Stoics understood, real freedom lies in not letting the loud displays of narcissists weigh us down. Instead, we should concentrate on living with virtue, reason, and compassion. When we shift our mindset in this way, the narcissist's grandiosity appears as nothing more than the cries of a needy child seeking attention, maybe deserving of pity, but not enough to disrupt our inner peace. They might persist in loudly boasting about themselves, trying to boost their own importance while undermining others. However, we can protect our happiness and self-worth by nurturing a solid foundation based on our own principles and understanding of ourselves, something the narcissist can never diminish through their hostile actions. In doing so, we maintain control by refusing to let the narcissist's harmful self-centeredness affect us. Additionally, we're creating space for the possibility that the narcissist might eventually realize the emptiness and negativity of their behavior, which could lead to a chance for them to address and heal their emotional struggles. So, if you find yourself in a situation with a narcissist, take a moment to pause. Understand that their actions come from a place of insecurity and a need for excessive admiration to cover up their feelings of inadequacy. Don't feed into or support those negative behaviors. Instead, hold on to your own self-respect. Treat them with dignity and integrity, qualities they often lack. And let go of any anger or hurt, replacing it with empathy and compassion for their difficult circumstances. By consistently applying this mindset, you'll see narcissists as nothing more than bothersome distractions that can't disturb your inner peace and contentment. Their attempts to impress and control emotionally will have no effect on you. You'll possess a deep sense of inner calm and balance that they may never achieve.